Hi, I'm Mr. C in the wood shop here, and I'd like to talk to you about sanders and all the different sanders that we happen to have here in the lab. I'm going to start with addressing the most aggressive to the least aggressive. Right now, here we have a belt sander. These are random orbit sanders. These are finish sanders, and this is a detail sander. So the first thing I would like to talk about is the belt sander. Let's talk about some of the different components and how to use this properly. First thing I'd like to address is how to wrap a cord properly. I like to make sure that we can prolong the life of our cords as long as possible without them having short out. I do have a couple of these done on purpose, left a certain way so that way you can see what the wrong way is and what the correct way of having a cord wrapped is. Okay, I just unraveled this cord, and what I want to do is from the end, I take my cord and I go ahead and make some loops. They don't have to be any specific size. You want it to be a halfway decent size, like an 8-inch loop. Then I'm going to take the last portion of this cord and wrap it around and underneath, back and forth, so it kind of holds its shape. So this will allow for me to take this, place it alongside the machine, and then I can go ahead and put it in its cubby where its home is inside that cabinet. Okay? So right now that I have this picked up so this can be out of our way, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about this piece of equipment. This right here is the dust collection bag. Essentially, all I have to do is just pull this straight up. I take this, walk over to the dust collector, floor sweep, unzip the bag, shake out the bag, and then I'll drop all the different sawdust that's in here. And then when I'm done, I just take it, I come back here, place this in here, push this back, and now it's back in its position to collect dust from this particular piece of equipment. Now, to replace or to look at a belt, I take my machine, I pull this lever up, and then I can slide out my belt. But as you can see, this belt's in relatively good condition, and the paper, the arrows are going this way, so I know that I need to place this on the piece of equipment this way. I'm putting the paper flush with the drive drum, and I flip that forward, okay? Because the paper's gonna go around in this direction, all right? Then, when it comes to this side of this piece of equipment, this knob right here will adjust the tracking of the belt. And what I mean by the tracking of the belt is this, if I move this knob this way, this piece of paper is going to slide over here. If I turn it the other way, it's going to slide over this way. We want the belt to track right on the drums. This is the idler drum, this is the drive drum, okay? Now, let's say you have the sandpaper on here, it's all set, it's tracking properly. I take and I place my belt sander down. I go ahead, I unravel the cord properly. I place it over my shoulder and I plug it into a power source. I'm not ready yet to start sanding anything, so I'm not going to plug this in yet, okay? I would have typically 2 clamps holding this down, and then I would sand this section of the board. When I'm done sanding this section of the board, I go ahead, I take the clamps off and I rotate it and bring it back this way, clamp it, and then sand this portion of the board. Whenever you're using a belt sander, you want to make sure that you don't have any really long sleeves that are hanging down. I wore long sleeves on purpose just to show that you can wear long sleeves in the shop as long as you pull them up to your elbow. They're not going to get in the way that way. Okay? Also, you're going to want to make sure you don't run the cord over, especially with this machine. Okay? So you have it plugged in. You have both hands on the equipment, one on the trigger side handle. There's a trigger here, a pin that when you pull the trigger, and if you push that pin in, you leave it like that, you'll see that the trigger is still on. That means it would stay in the running motion, okay? As soon as you let go, it pops that pin out, it'll stop running. The other handle up here is for your other hand, okay? So typically how I would be holding this, I'm gonna hold this slightly above the material. So I have this up, but let's say I pulled the trigger, it's running. I'm moving this back and forth along the grain, but keep on moving, okay? Like I said, this piece of equipment was designed to remove material. It is not a piece of equipment to prepare this surface for the finishing booth for the final coat, or the stain, then the final top coat, okay? So this is a very aggressive piece of equipment, and make sure that if you're ever gonna use this in here, please ask me or one of the other instructors in here to see if this is appropriate sander for the job at hand, okay, until you're used to this, all right? So this is your belt sander, okay? Make sure the paper is in good condition though. It doesn't have pitch all over it, or it might have a line of pitch. If you do that, you're gonna end up burning the wood. Make sure that's a no-no, you don't do that, okay? If you need another belt, come and get me. I have plenty of all the different grits that we have. Typically, I like to keep an aggressive grit on here because, like I said, this is for removing material, all right? So this is a belt sander. It's not going to leave a specific scratch pattern in the wood other than just removing it very, very aggressively. So I'm gonna wind this cord up properly, okay? So that way I can go to the next piece of equipment in the sanding process. Now, this is a random orbit sander, and this just happens to be a barrel grip. It has a variable speed here, 6 being the highest, which means the fastest. And as I dial this down, 1 being the slowest, here's the on-off switch, and here's my handle. Now, I have my pad. This is called a PSA, pressure sensitive adhesive. And then I have my disc, which I have a brand new disc. Whoa, sorry about that. I pull this back just a little bit. I place this on here. Now this is on my disc, okay? This piece is tossed out, all right? I'll just place this in my back pocket for now. Okay, as you can see, like I said, the cord is wrapped properly. This cord is wrapped as a perfect example of what not to do. This will shorten the life of the cord, which is not what you want because, let's face it, whenever you pull this piece of equipment out, you want to use it. And if this is done often enough, the time that you want to go use it, well, that'll be the time that it doesn't want to work, or it turns on and off, then it becomes a safety hazard, can't use it. So let's make sure that we wrap the cords properly. On this type of random orbit sander, we do not have a dial on it. It is not variable speed, okay? So this machine should be held with one hand. This one should be held with two, all right? With these pieces of equipment, you never want to push down or force the piece of equipment down on the sand, the material you want to sand. It will work slower. It's better to run at its design speed. So you want to just hold on to it, let it rest onto the surface, and you're traveling up and down the surface, making sure that it's spinning in the downstroke side of the sandpaper, and it's running at about 8 feet per minute, which is pretty slow. These were also designed best for using, say, 80 grit, 100 grit, 120 grit. Okay? So, with that being said, I want to also let you know that on the surface of the material, these two pieces of equipment will leave a mark on the material. It's refined now, but it's going to be, and this is going to be exaggerated just so you can see, it's going to be a circle motion, or circles, like this, okay? And that's okay as you go from grit to grit to grit.